Rajesh Khanna walking on Juhu Beach and Rajesh Khanna singing Kahin Dur Jab Din Dhal Jaye, which might seem like a kind of ironic pick because it's such a slow and kind of moody song. But I think for me, and I'm very defensive about Bombay when people say it's dirty, it's too fast-paced, people don't have time, because for me, when a city moves so fast, the beauty and what you revel in is the few moments when you slow down.
The attraction of a non-fictional story relating to Bombay's seas and its kind of coastal world is non-stop for me.
Mumbai is a city of possibilities. It's a city that makes you believe that a different tomorrow is possible. You can change, you can make something of yourself. That's not one word, but sorry, it's one emotion, one sentiment.
Are you asking if I got a hand job in a local, Anuradha?
As all of you know, I have one enduring passion, and that is Bombay or Mumbai, the city I was born in, the city I continue to live in. I'm really excited to tell you about a book that's just released, which is based on Bombay, which is inspired by Bombay. It's called The Only City. It's an anthology. There are 18 short stories, some by new writers, some by writers who are writing fiction for the first time, and some by stalwarts, people who have lavished their attention and love on this city and chronicled it for decades. How did you decide on the 18 people that came together? Were you looking for a certain kind of voice, or were you just looking for a spectrum, a patchwork almost of experiences or perspectives on Mumbai?
I was, Anuradha, really interested in the quality of the writer's relationship with Bombay. So I sought writers for whom Bombay was a key feature, either in their life or in their oeuvre. And though some of the writers in the anthology, you've read the book, so you'll know which ones I'm speaking about. Some of the writers, such as Ranjit Hoskote or Namita Devi Dayal, are, their stories are set in the neighborhoods where they were brought up. But not all the writers in the anthology are born and brought up in Bombay. What does tie everyone together, I would say, from the veterans to the emerging writers, is that all of them have an almost alchemic relationship with the city. The city has changed them in some way. And for me, this filter of focusing on the quality of their relationship with the city was more exciting than focusing, trying to balance the emerging voices with the veterans, or trying to kind of tick all the socio-economic placements. Or
even the geography.
Exactly, like a kind of south to north Bombay. So I was focused on the quality, and I'm really happy about that.
So I moved to the city in 2019, and I found it very hard for the first 2 years to think about the city in any abstract way, because the city is so provocative and it's constantly provoking you through images, through people, things they're doing, saying. You're constantly in a state of provocation in the city, and it's hard in that moment to really step aside and think about the grand scheme of things and how you fit into the city. I didn't read Bombay literature, I didn't read about Bombay for the longest time until I settled into the skin of the city. Like small things like when you're taking the local rush hour morning, the etiquette of that. Like, where do you stand? For example, in Kurla, if you're getting out, Kurla, you can exit on both sides of the compartment. And so there are certain spaces you shouldn't stand. And I didn't know this. So I stood right in the center. And as the two people were leaving and the two people were rushing in, I turned into a whirlpool in between. And for 20 seconds, I was spinning around, and someone had to like stop me and say, you don't stand here. Sort of the unwritten rules of the city that you're trying to figure out, that you're trying to write for yourself sometimes. In the process of that, how do you really step aside and think about the city in any large, abstract, grand way? You can't think of the future when you're you have to be present. It's not a desire to be present, it's a necessity, it's a desperation. If you're not present, then you'll be flung out of the train,
I've lived in many different cities. I was born in Bombay. I grew up in Gujarat. I spent several years in San Francisco, in Delhi as well, and now I'm a Mumbaikar again. I think Mumbai really exemplifies this contract where you feel like you are part of something bigger than yourself.
So, Raghu, you're very familiar with three cities. While you've written about Mumbai in this anthology, you're actually familiar with Mumbai, Bangalore, and Delhi. How does Mumbai fit into your scheme of things?
Yeah, you're right. And in fact, Mumbai is probably the city I'm least familiar with of the three. Although I was born here, I was raised in Bangalore, and then I spent most of my adult life in Delhi, and only sort of recently moved back here after trying again and again. So I'm sort of here as a um, as a noob, if you know that word.
Yeah. NWB?
NWB. Just still like discovering the city in some ways. And I think that some of that makes it into the story that I wrote.
My promise has been put to test by an old flame, flickering, who texted me a disappearing photo of his horse dick in the afternoon. I swallowed my saliva, scratching my crotch. I would not reply. He had made me cry, does he not remember? I forget there are men for whom memory is not warning but ammunition, whose relationship to their past is not as charged, not littered with minefields. I did not leave work early as I usually do. I waited for rush hour instead, descending into the crowds, the bodies pooled together in Dadar, where hordes from both the central and western line erupt in overlapping chaos. Thinking of that image he sent, a blurring chorus of my weeping fading out.
Tell people what 2x2 is about.
So there is this man at the end of an exhausting day. He's taking the local back home. It's a train from Dadar to Mulund. And as he gets into this compartment, a compartment that's known for cruising or seeking public sex, he makes eye contact with this man and their bodies move closer and he gets a hand job. It's one of the most crowded places in one of the most crowded cities, and it's this moment of intimacy. It's a private intimacy in one of the most public spaces. And the story is a transcription of that interaction. And the point of that is I didn't want the aboutification of a story, which happens when we write, which happens when we talk about what we have written.
Yeah.
My day job as a film critic, and one of the things I always struggle with is how do I stay close to the skin of the film while writing about it, right? Because if we say the film is about something, the moment we say about, you've created a distance between you and the work of art. And then you revel in the themes and the abstractions. I wanted to stay as close to the body as I could. I wanted to stay close to the foreskin and the sweat and the armpits.
Take a deep breath, he said, and put the needle to her skin. It's not as bad as Kanchan said it would be, she thought. But when the needle touched her knuckle, she cried out, "Aye!" Then she pursed her lips and looked down. She knew that Kanchan would laugh at her tattoo the next day. "At our age, we should be getting the names of our boyfriends, ain't?" Kanchan would say, "not of our parents or brothers, sisters." But Kanchan had not been raised by a single mother with 3 daughters. She had not been the first in her family to pass 12th standard, or touch a computer, or open a bank account in her teens. Nor had Kanchan been the first in her family to not be married at 18, and that too without a fight. It had been no harder for Saile to get here than it had been for Kanchan, and for that small but radical turn of fate, she had her mother and sisters to thank. Aitai is the second story in this collection. It's about a young woman called Saile who's been raised by a single mother, has grown up in an all-female, all-woman household, and she's just entered the workforce fresh out of high school or junior college, as we call it here in Bombay. And she's joined a data annotation job. So she works for an AI company that's building technology to help newborns. And she's a data annotator. So AI models derive their intelligence from data that's made meaningful by humans. And she's one of the data annotators helping the AI make sense of this data, which is videos of newborns. And she has a boss called Ananya whom she really admires. And the story is about what happens when she comes across a video of a baby who needs help. And Ananya and she have different responses to this
do you think that Saili, who wants to do something, and Ananya, who feels but wants to also move on with work and with her life, do you think these are two ways that Mumbai tends to react to people and things around them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I hadn't thought about it till you posed this question to me. You're very right. I mean, this is perhaps what we call the spirit of Bombay, right? And that's equally made of two different impulses. One is the impulse to reach out and help, the other is the impulse to look away. So there is a very strong strain of self preservation that's critical to living, surviving, thriving in this city. You have to look out for yourself to some extent, but at the same time, it is what it is because people have given back to the city, to the community, to the fabric of what makes this city so great.
Just that morning, Nitila had been on the other side of it, while she leaned on the ferry's railing, throwing chips to the seagulls, and watched an ivory arrowhead fly by. She was used to coming out to Alibag on Sundays, with the college kids on day trips and salaried families who carried their own lunches to eat and leave on the beach. Nitila would visit the big house where her father stayed and tended to the gardens. It was one of those compounds built and preserved for the owners to party in 3 or 4 times a year. Sometimes the owners would be there and would emerge disheveled to greet her. They would shake her hand and marvel at her qualities and at their own part in producing the fine, smart creature before them. Nitila took for granted a yearly increment in her dignity, in her ease in that world. The economics of the Alibag house were beyond her, but she had crossed its moral terrain often enough to know that, for the family, benevolence was often the best part of pride. She only had to learn to play along, to take a seat in the sitting room, where her father had never sat, and put a hand on the armrest as she talked about college. "Come," they would say, and invite her to try a new thing. "Come and taste this. It's lemon souffle." Or, "Come, see if these fit you. Yes, they're pedal pushers. They're meant to look like that." It was always an invitation in, and Nitila went, never setting a foot wrong, nor staying too long. It's a little tricky talking about a short story because it only goes on that long, so you don't know how much you can say without spoiling it. But it is called Speedboat. So something's very obvious about it, which is that it's partly set on a speedboat. The story begins in Alibag on the pier where the ferry leaves, and also where people take private boats, and it proceeds onto one of those boats. Since we have this backdrop, I think I might as well tell you one question I've always had about Bombay, which is that every time I come here, as a person from 2 landlocked cities, I certainly notice the amazing fact of the sea. But the thing about the sea in Bombay is a coastal city. It's also a maritime city, meaning it has people who work and
a long history
and a great
and relationship
history.
with therefore other people, other countries.
That's right. But in our modern lives, and certainly in the lives of everybody I know here, the sea, it does not figure as anything more than a backdrop. It's scenery. As in, case in point. And so I'm always fascinated when I come here with what is the sea like as an actual place to be. And the only time I've ever experienced that in Bombay is on the crossing between Alibag and Colaba. And I think that's probably underlies how that became the subject of my story. Because for me, that's the only time I've ever been out past this kind of dividing line and onto the water.
It's interesting to me that you say that the sea is the scenery, the background in Mumbai, and we don't really engage with it, right? We don't swim in the sea, we don't use it really to travel, except for the Bombay Alibag, Bombay Elephanta Cave journey. what is also interesting is that the sea is not even the scenery or the backdrop to a lot of people who live in Bombay or in Mumbai and the MMR, right? In the suburbs, in the distant suburbs, the sea is just not there. If you saw Payal Kapadia's All We Imagine as Light, you don't see the sea.
Until they get out of Bombay.
Yeah,
Right.
so so it's interesting that it's here. We don't engage with it, and for a lot of people, they don't even see it except occasionally on a weekend, or if you go specifically to Juhu Beach.
Yeah,
or
it's a
whatever.
sort of, in some ways, it's this kind of metric of privilege.
Yeah.
That as you sort of progress, or
Yeah.
not everyone progresses,
Yeah.
of course, but depending on how well off you are and how much privilege you obtain in this world, your view of the water opens up wider and wider. And for many, as someone who's spent time here in his 20s, in his 30s, in smaller small apartments, in less comfortable apartments, it's like, oh, I can see this much of the sea, I can see this much of the sea, and then it sort of widens up.
Yeah. As you progress,
Yes,
right,
something
economically in life in this city, and then you can get that sea view, get to the sea view, and you can then cross over to Alibag and have a home
right.
over there.
And of course, there are very,
Sure.
very many exceptions
Yeah,
to that.
yeah.
There's all sorts of working class and, like
The
Koli
coolies,
communities who are
yeah.
right by the sea. There's all sorts of exceptions. But for people like us who arrive here, that's sort of like a distinct pattern.
Yeah.
After 8 years of living together, they did move to a building named after an Italian island. It had been barely 2 weeks. They had moved, somewhat reluctantly, because they believed it was time. The last few times Aparna's mother had come to visit them in their old home, she had asked when they would shift to a place where they could settle down. Aparna knew she meant a building without paparazzi at the gate, a building with a lobby and guard desk, lifts, a playground, and normal neighbors. She hadn't insisted on vegetarian neighbors because her daughter now ate chicken and eggs, but she meant neighbors who were not Sach, the celebrity physiotherapist to movie stars, who spent each of his mornings raking the miniature Zen garden outside his door. Or Paloma and Kabir, the divorced architects who continued to live together to co-parent their 2 rescue beagles. The new building complex was not far from the neighborhood they had left behind, but it was a different world. It even had its own movie theater. From the window of her 11th floor bedroom, she could see cars move in orderly lanes on the Bandra Worli sea link, their true speed distorted by distance, the beeps and honks entirely eliminated. My story is about Aparna and Mahesh, who are 2 immigrants from steel cities, and that was really important to me that, they are from these small towns and they've come to Bombay via their universities in Ahmedabad and Pune.
Yeah.
But in the 15 years that they've been here, I say they've kind of metamorphosed into the city's avocado eating elite because they work in advertising. So they look, they wear crumpled linen and they have these they play board games and they have poker nights. So they are the city's elite now. And what they love about the city is that no one asks them where they are from, which I think is quite true for Bombay, for
And for
immigrants
most people.
of a certain class. So it's about Aparna and Mahesh, who are on a kind of upwardly mobile journey in their lives, and they move to that kind of a tower. And it's, I won't say more, but it's exploring their relationship with kind of marriage, intimacy, trying to be normal, and what is normal, and does I was interested in the question of does our idea of what normal is change over time, and does who we really are inside, does that change when you change the way you dress, eat, live and love? So I think because for me, this idea of normalcy, this idea of fitting in, Bombay is a city that I truly believe rewards metamorphosis more than many other cities which want you to remain a certain way. So how do these people who have metamorphosed so much, where do they go from here, and how are they rewarded? So those were the questions I wanted to ask.
So I have to stop and ask you, during COVID, in this tower that you found yourself in, were people playing apartment shuffle? And you'll have to read the book to know what apartment shuffle means.
They weren't, Anuradha. That's why I'm a fiction writer. It's fiction. I was also married for 10 years. I'm not anymore. So I would also say it's fantasy, actually, because I actually like the honesty in my story, which is not always real in real life. So it's fantasy.
The stories in The Only City explore Mumbai's impulses and its nature, probing class and poverty, caste and privilege, ambition and what thwarts it, change and status quo, love and desire, and naturally, life and death. Weaving together experiences and memories, observations and judgments, they are snapshots of a city that is being remade in a frenzy.
Do you see and do you feel viscerally this kind of Mumbai making or remaking itself all the time, everywhere you look? As someone who was born in Bombay and has lived all her life in Mumbai, I'm just, landmarks are going, familiar landmarks are gone, buildings are dropping down. Every second building, in an area where I grew up is gone. A new skyscraper is coming up. Do you react to this at all? Does it bother you, or because of the way you're engaging with the city?
Yeah, I certainly do notice it, and I notice it more strongly now. So I have to question whether in some ways it's a reflection of my own life stage and the kind of the growing power of nostalgia.
Yeah.
But what's happening in this current era of Bombay's urban life, which is construction mania,
Yeah.
is
Both public and private.
It's something you can't ignore, public and private. But it's the private stuff that sort of gets under my skin even more than the public stuff, because it just seems to be such an uncontrolled, ungoverned idea of what needs to be built, as opposed, just sort of seems like we're building a city for a future population of billionaires who may or may not exist.
Do you think that Mumbai, which was known for its working class, and of course the working class is still in the city, but do you think that there is a definite shift? The mills no longer exist, and we know about the kind of working culture and unionism and and how, as a result of that, the mills ended up also exiting the city. What I'm trying to get at is, do you see Mumbai as a working class city anymore?
Now, I'm not an expert on this subject, and I'd be very interested to hear someone who is an expert expand on this. What I do know is that it's a city that's not particularly friendly to the working class in any way. But for all of us who have arrived here, we're all benefiting from the legacy of its working class origins. From Bombay as a city of, basically of organized labor, from that, from this long era of mill workers and mill workers unions. Why do we all come to, appreciate and cherish Bombay as a city that's safe for women and allows women into the streets? That's part of the legacy of its working class culture.
Absolutely.
Why do we feel like Bombay is cosmopolitan, is friendly, is in some, has a different social texture than New Delhi? It's the same explanation. So we all, that legacy remains, and the people remain. But the sort of the institutional connections have all been broken, and that, I don't think that's to anyone's benefit at all.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how the nature of work, the nature of the working class is changing and has changed in Mumbai over the past couple of decades at least, maybe a little more? And what are some of the anxieties or concerns that this changing nature of work evoke in you?
The reason I didn't dare to predict what Siley's life will be like in 10 years or 20 years is I don't know what the future of work will be. I don't know what the future of work will be for someone like me, who, apart from having a creative life, is also a knowledge worker. So I work in the AI for public health, tech for public health space, and I don't know what the future of work will be, honestly. and you're already beginning to see, a massive shift in work, in jobs,
Mm.
with the proliferation of these gig economy jobs, right, which are all contractual. I think it's really good in the here and now, that there is more employment available, but it's also much more precarious,
Yes.
where a lot of the benefits, the medium and long term value,
Mm.
is being captured by companies, and the risks in the short term, in the medium and long term, are being borne by workers. So
And
across the
workers who
spectrum,
do not have the kind of benefits that
yeah,
unionization and
yeah,
collective bargaining and that entire
yeah,
history of the workers
yeah,
movement and what that
yeah,
offers, those securities are non-existent for the working class today in a city like Mumbai, isn't it?
yeah. They have no bargaining power, or they have very little bargaining power. There is no insurance.
Yeah.
It's unclear what the growth opportunities are for somebody who's in a contractual role. What are the learning opportunities? What are the career growth pathways? None of that is clear.
For a long time, there was a time when, I guess when we were growing up, that
Hmm.
your birth
Hmm.
and your education,
Hmm.
and what your parents studied
Yeah.
and where they went determined where you were living in the city and what salary you were making and what car you were driving. There was a through line. It was clear. Okay, your parents studied in Oxford. This is your salary. And there is no through line anymore. People with PhDs and master's degrees could be living, having a 1/10 of the income of someone who has, is an ad filmmaker, who is maybe the first person in his family to graduate. So I feel there is a triumph of labor in a sense
Interesting, yeah.
in that as well. And I think Bombay allows for that more than Delhi would allow for that. So,
Okay.
and I love that about Bombay. Anuradha, I love that in Bombay, when
Yeah.
you go to a party, people might ask you, they will ask you what you do.
Yeah,
They
of
don't
course.
ask you where you went to school, because that is a question that really determines where you come from, not where you went to college.
Yeah.
When I went to Delhi, people kept asking me where I went to school. They wanted to figure if I went to Welham or Mayo. And I didn't, They weren't interested that I went to Columbia for my master's. So I think the fact that in Bombay people ask you not where you live first, but what you do says a lot about Bombay.
So this is quite a diverse anthology. If you have slice of life tales, you also have tales with the proverbial twist in the tale. If one story takes you down the rabbit hole of someone's mind, another one imagines a brutal scenario that's only too easy to believe.
Is it a terrible question to ask you? Are there any favorites?
It is a terrible question, but I can tell you what was the most surprising, if
Okay.
that
Yeah,
satisfies as an
sure.
answer.
Yeah, sure.
It's difficult to pick favorites for me, but as the book has now been out for a couple of weeks, I think there are some that receive most responses. And some that just don't receive a response.
Sure.
But for me, I think each story plays a very critical role. It's like a cricket lineup.
Yeah.
You can't have
One,
openers,
Yeah.
all 11 openers. The one that really surprised me, this is a kind of make-up answer for your question, is Jeet's story, because Jeet is so prolific.
I'm
Jeet Thal.
never going to look at Hanging Gardens in the same way, and you won't either if you read it.
Jeet is so prolific. We've read his travel writing, we've read his journalism, we've read his poetry, we've read his novels, but nothing prepared me for the story that Jeet sent in. I read it at night because I had a day job at the time, so I was working on this at night. And it was a terrible mistake because I couldn't sleep. I was like, what has happened? Has he really written this? Has he sent this? Is this going to be in the anthology?
Yeah.
Even the way I was looking at the anthology changed then, because I thought, the anthology had a more even keel. It was all literary fiction. And then suddenly it became a genre anthology.
Yeah.
I think his story gave it a genre. And then Shubhangi Swaroop's story gave the anthology magical realism, and then I kind of pushed some of the other stories towards certain genres in the edits. So I would say that really, it was really surprising, and I think it'll surprise a lot of readers as well.
So these stories work in different ways and for different reasons. There are some stories that will work better for you than they did for me, and there are some stories that worked for me that may not work for you. Here are 6 stories that I really liked or really leaped out. They include, of course, 2 by 2 Prathyush's 2 by 2 which you've already heard about, Raghu's Speedboat, Amrita's Aitai, then Lindsay Pereira's Strays, Jeet Thile's Your Meat in My Hand, and Tejaswini Apte's Nurse Shanti. I'm looking forward to hear the stories that worked for you, your top 6 if you like, and so go pick up The Only City.